You're still on hold there, don't let that. Can't hear the church. Good morning to the time. Good morning. Whose turn is it today? Or order?
Sure. Yes, we are here. And now we're on page 1098 of the World Scriptures and the Teachings of our Father, Reverend Myung. And we're reading under subtopic number 1, God is the basis of world peace, under the teachings of our Father. When the Cold War ended, the world had a brief moment of celebration, as if peace had arrived. But humanity soon realized that the end of the Cold War did not automatically mean the advent of an era of world peace. Fierce battles continue. Even at this moment, brutal massacres are occurring in numerous places. This is the reality. Conflict arises for many reasons, but one of the primary factors contributing to their emergence is the deep-rooted disharmony that exists among world religions. Therefore, we should recognize how critically important it is that the religions dialogue with one another, learn to accept one another, and harmonize with each other. In the modern age, in most nations, religious ideals have come to hold a place wholly separate from the center of secular political power, and most people have come to accept this reality as the way things ought to be. I believe, however, that it is time for the international organizations whose purpose is to support the ideal of world peace to reconsider their relationships with the great religious traditions of the world. At their root, human problems are not entirely social or political, and so social and political approaches will always be of limited effectiveness. Although secular authorities rule most human societies, religion lies at the heart of most national and cultural identities. In fact, religious faith and devotion have far greater importance in most people's hearts than do political loyalty. The time has come for religion to renew itself and manifest true leadership in the world. People of faith should feel responsibility for the plight, suffering, and injustices experienced by the world's peoples. Religious people have not been good examples in the practice of love and giving for the sake of others, and for this reason should engage in deep self-reflection. It is time for religious people to repent for their preoccupation with individual salvation and narrow denominational interests. And we're now on page 1099. Such practices have prevented religious bodies from giving their utmost to the cause of world salvation. Our age, more than any other demands that we go beyond our faith and the interest of particular religions and put our love and ideals into practice for the sake of the world. In particular, God calls upon us leaders, especially religious leaders, in hope that we will stand against the injustices and evils of the world and bestow His true love upon the world. Hence, all people of faith must become one in heart in order to give full expression, both in words and actions, to God's passionate desire for humanity's restoration and peace. And this is from a speech in August 18, year 2000. From the viewpoint of God's historical dispensation, humankind is one large family that is to live by attending God as the true parent, transcending national boundaries and racial and religious differences. Humankind is destined to cooperate as a global family and become a single community. We live in an age where we can no longer feel that we have nothing to do with the problems of our neighbors or the sufferings of other countries. We cannot ignore the reality of humanity ravaged by war, crime, drug abuse, pollution, the destruction of ecosystems, moral corruption, and the scourge of AIDS. Today, with the eyes of history upon us, we must answer to God how can humankind, whose mandate is the realization of complete harmony and unity, overcome the unfortunate reality and greet the coming millennium with hope? How can we realize a peaceful world in which everyone lives for and trusts others, irrespective of personal and national interests? What is the new value system by which we shall attain this ideal? Rather than riding the chariot of science and technology, pulled by the forces of secular humanism, we must humbly seek the answers within our original mind. If we cannot find the solution on earth, we must find it through listening to the voice of heaven. And this is from a speech on August 20, 1996. And we have the second subtopic, the United Nations and global governance. We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. And for these ends, to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors, and to unite our strength to maintain international peace and security, and to ensure by the acceptance of principles and the institution of methods that armed force shall not be used save in the common interest, and to employ international machinery for the promotion of the economic and social advancement of all peoples. Have resolved to combine our efforts to accomplish these aims. And now on page 1100, accordingly, our respective governments, through representatives assembled in the city of San Francisco, who have exhibited their full powers found to be in good and due form, have agreed to the present Charter of the United Nations, and do hereby establish an international organization to be known as the United Nations. And this is from the preamble of the United Nations Charter. Now is the gracious Lord's ordinance promulgated. No one shall cause another pain or injury. All mankind shall live in peace together, under a shield of administrative benevolence. And this is from Adi Grant, Sri Raga, M.5, page 74. And this is from Sikhism. In times past, one would be justified in feeling that the public authorities of the different political communities might be in a position to provide for the universal common good, either through normal diplomatic channels or through top-level meetings. by making use of juridical instruments such as conventions and treaties. Today, the universal common good presents us with problems which are worldwide in their dimensions. Problems, therefore, which cannot be solved except by a public authority with power, organization, and means of coextensive with these problems, and with a worldwide sphere of activity. Consequently, the moral order itself demands the establishment of some such general form of public authority, set up by common accord and not imposed by force. By the principle of subsidiary, the public authority of the world community is not intended to limit the sphere of action of the public authority of the individual political community, much less to take its place. On the contrary, its purpose is to create, on a world basis, an environment in which the public authorities of each political community, its citizens, and intermediate associations can carry out their tasks, fulfill their duties, and exercise their rights with greater security. It is our earnest wish that the United Nations organization, in its structure and in its means, may become ever more equal to the magnitude and nobility of its task. This is all the more to be hoped, for since all human beings are becoming more consciously aware that they are living members of a universal family of humankind. And this is from Pope John the 23rd, Pacem in Terris Christianity. And now we have the teachings of our Father, Reverend Sun Myung Moon. We have Reverend Ezra, and we're still on page 1100. We have Reverend Ezra.
Teachings of our true Father, the Reverend Dr. Sun Myung. The biblical account of Cain and Abel reveals the beginning of human conflict right in Adam's family. It provides the archetype of humankind's unending history of struggle, war, and conflict. We are conflicted in many levels, beginning with the war between body and mind within each individual and extending to wars between nations and even to the global conflict between materialism and theism. Who can unite this ancient knot of Cain and Abel? It has been tightened for thousands of years and grows ever more tangled. Do you think the United Nations can do it? The United Nations, the UN, at its founding proclaimed a movement for world peace, and for 60 years it has dictated itself to this task, yet world peace still remains far distant. Peace among nations can never come when those entrusted with the task have not resolved the Cain-Abel relationship between their own mind and body. Therefore, the time has come to launch the Abel-type sovereign for the peaceful, ideal world that will set its course according to God's will. And this is a speech given to us September 21st, the year 2005. And we read, while peace can be fully accomplished only when the wisdom and efforts of world's religious leaders who represent the internal concerns of the mind and conscience work cooperatively and respectfully with national leaders who have much practical wisdom and worldly experience about the external reality or body. In this light, it is time for us to give serious consideration even to the prospects of restructuring the United Nations. For example, perhaps it is possible to envision the United Nations as a bicameral institution. The existing United Nations structure, composed of national representatives, may be regarded as a Congress where the interests of each member nation are represented. However, I submit that serious consideration should be given to forming a religious assembly or council of religious representatives within the structure of the United Nations. These assembly and council would consist of respected spiritual leaders in fields such as religion, culture, and education. Of course, the members of this interreligious assembly will need to have demonstrated an ability to transcend the limited interests of individual nations and to speak for the concerns of the entire world and humanity at large. The two chambers, working together in mutual respect and cooperation, will be able to make great advances in ushering in a world of peace. The wisdom and vision of great religious leaders will substantially supplement the political insights, experience, and skill of the world's political leaders. And this is a speech given to us August 18th, the year 2000. And now on page 1101, 1101, we read subtopic number 3, building a culture of peace that unites the peoples of the earth as one. And we read, O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes, that you might know each other, in bracket, not that you might despise each other, close bracket. And this is from the Quran, Surah 49, verses 13. And we read, for the development of a peaceful, friendly, human family of nations, with a rich variety of faith and political and economic systems, each of us has the responsibility to strive towards such harmony. There is no alternative. And this is from Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, Buddhism. And we read, since wars begin in the mind of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed, that ignorance of each other's ways and lives has been a common cause throughout the history of mankind, of that suspicion and mistrust between the peoples of the world, through which their differences have all too often broken into war. That a peace based exclusively upon the political and economic arrangement of governments would not be a peace which could secure the unanimous, lasting and sincere support of the peoples of the world, and that the peace must therefore be founded, if it is not to fail, upon the intellectual and moral solidarity of mankind. And this is from preamble to the Constitution of UNESCO. And we read, peace is not something that you and I or a few great souls can create at once by command. Even a million Christians or Krishnas could not do it. Try as he would, Lord Krishna could not prevent the great war between the Pandavas and Kauravas, which is described in the Mahabharata. All humanity has to become Christ-like to bring peace to earth. When each one of us shapes his life according to the wisdom and example of a Christ, a Krishna, a Buddha, we can have peace there, here, not before. So long as God's children differentiate, we are Indians and you are Americans, we are Germans, you are English, so long as they be bound by delusion and the world divided, much war and suffering and destruction will be prevented if we cease to emphasize differences and learn to love all without distinction of prejudice or prejudice. Be more proud that you are made in the image of God than that you are of a certain nationality, for American or Indian and all the other nationalities are just outer coats, which, turning to page 1102, which in time will be discarded, but you are a child of God throughout eternity. Isn't it better to teach that ideal to your children? It is the only way to peace. Establish the true ideals of peace in the schools and live peace in your own life. And this is from Paramahansa Yogananda, and this is from Hinduism. And we read, let there be a small country with a few inhabitants, though there be labor-saving controversies, the people would not use them. Let the people mind death and not migrate far. Though there be boats and carriages, there would be no occasion to ride in them. Though there be armor and weapons, there would be no occasions to display them. Let people revert to the practice of knotting ropes in bracket instead of writing close bracket, and be contented with their food, pleased with their clothing, satisfied with their houses, and happy with their customs. Though there be a neighboring country in sight, and the people hear each other's cocks crowing and dogs barking, they would grow old and die without having anything to do with each other. And this is from Tao Te Ching 80, Taoism. And we read, when the 84,000 kings of the 84,000 cities of India are contented with their own territories and with their own kingly state and their own house of treasure, they will not attack one another or raise mutual strife. They will gain their thrones by the due accumulation of the merit of their former deeds. They will be satisfied with their own royal state, and will not destroy one another, nor show their mantle by laying waste whole provinces. When all the 84,000 kings of the 84,000 capital cities of India think of their mutual welfare and feel mutual affection and joy, contented in their own domains, India will be prosperous, well-fed, pleasant, and populous. This is from Golden Light Sutra, Buddhism. And we read, world peace is inconceivable unless the world's leaders come to recognize the interdependence in self-demands, the abandonment of the politics of blocks, the sacrifice of all forms of economic, military, and political imperialism, and the transformation of mutual distrust into collaboration. This is precisely the act proper to solidarity among individuals and nations. And this is from Pope John Paul II, Solicitudo Rei Solicis, Christianity. And we read the last verse here. In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrian will come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Syria. And the Egyptian will worship with the Assyrian. In that day Israel will be the third with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing in the midst of the earth, whom the Lord of hosts has blessed, saying, blessed be Egypt my people, and Assyria the work of my hands, and Israel my heritage. And this is from the book of Isaiah chapter 19, verses 23 to 25. And it's already 5:40. Over to you, Reverend Ota.
Okay, Pastor Oliver, Pastor Contemporary, we are finished today. Want to say any more, or just do tomorrow, Pastor Oliver?
Yeah, it's up to you. We can finish. I wanted just to say that I'm left, but if you like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's finish.
Okay, let's finish. All right, let's continue. The teachings of our true father, the Reverend Dr. Myung. In the 21st century, people will not be able to exercise dominion on the earth or even exist there, while disregarding the ultimate principle of the Creator. The future of humanity will require closer relationships among people. In the future, people will have no choice but to live very closely together, transcending their region, nationality, and race. In other words, the vision of global families will become a reality. People will not only have to understand others who have different religions, cultures, traditions, and lifestyles. They will have to accept them and interrelate with them. No individual or group will be able to selfishly maintain its own sanctuary. And this is a speech given to us August 24th, 1991. We read, today on every level, boundaries cause division and conflict. If we can eliminate all the boundaries in this world, a world of peace would inevitably come about. We must recognize who owns those boundaries. This is on page 1103. Clearly, it is not God. It was the devil, Satan, who first created boundaries. Wherever a boundary exists, there is always the devil and his cohorts. This is a result of the human fall. When the first human ancestors switched their lineage and good and evil began to diverge from each other. When we look at the division between the East and the West, we see that different culture spheres have led to antagonism at their boundaries, and that the devil is encamped there. It was Satan, not God, who created boundaries by digging all sorts of traps and enmeshing people in racial discrimination and evil cultures, histories, and traditions. God's desire is for a world of goodness and unity, a world of oneness in which all humanity lives as one great family. Boundaries have no place in such a world. In a world without boundaries, there can be no enemies. The concept of enemy entails the existence of boundaries. When we love our enemies and make oneness with them, the boundaries between us will collapse. That is why God's strategy and tactic has always been love your enemy. There can be no greater strategy for peace than this. Throughout history, this incredible fact has escaped humanity's understanding, and it has yet to be grasped, even in modern times. And this is a speech given to us October 3rd, the year 2003. And we read, the spirit world does not acknowledge national borders. It transcends them. We were given the responsibility to lead this dispensation on earth. Hence, we all have to go beyond national boundaries. We bring Asian people to live in the West and Western people to the Orient. By virtue of this work, Oriental spirits are able to live in the West, and Western spirits can move to the East. Muslim spirits can visit the Christian world, and the Christian spirits can visit the Islamic world. Before, in bracket, this work was done, close bracket, they were separated from one another, but now they can come and go anywhere they want. Moments to make external unity have come into being, like the European Union that permits Europeans to travel freely throughout Europe. No power can succeed in blocking this trend. The world can have a future only when people are free to move about and live anywhere on earth. Yet, still American restricts immigration and communists prevent their people from living. That is not our way in the Unification Church. We don't say only whites can join or that blacks are not welcome. I come from Asia, but I don't say that anyone who is not an Asian should leave. We are colorblind and recognize no borders. This is a speech given to us November 12, 1978. And we read, once true love is perfected in the human world, what possible political, economic, cultural, and environmental problems could persist? In the world of true love, every problem can be solved. It is a world of freedom, peace, and happiness, replete with joy. It is the world of God's ideal. It is a world where joy and happiness are magnified infinitely and eternally, and where everyone has the right to equal position, equal participation, and equal inheritance. And this is a speech given to us June 11, 1998. And we read, in the future there will be no fighting. Up to now, we have had useless fights centering on the self. People fought to rob each other. In the unified world under God's sovereignty, where people live for the sake of others, there will be no need for wars. Brothers do not need to rob each other. Rather, a needy person will have to run away as others try to give him more than he can use. Laws will all disappear. When all people govern themselves by love, they will observe the laws automatically. If all people practice love for the sake of others, there will be no crime. Higher and lower become one, and front and back, left and right, all become one. And this is a speech given to us November 24th, 1991. And we read, when minorities can receive equal benefits from the system, and when advanced nations supply the less advanced nations with technology in the spirit of helping them to become economically, turning to page 1104, the last page, to become independent instead of
by the pound sign. You entered 101. There are 11 participants in this conference. Please announce yourself. For building oneness, God is affection, equal among the not-speaking community.
oh, sorry, the phone cut itself off, and we are back. We should go beyond racism and even overcome the whole world with this thought. In the future, the 5 races should become one, because God's love is one. and because God beholds beauty in oneness, God's interest and affection cannot differ among the lands He created. Interracial marriages is a symbol of God's love and will. Even the secular world recognizes that love does not respect national borders. How much more is it true in God's dominion? God's love is fundamentally different from the tragic bonds of love formed in a world historically dominated by power and authority. God's love does not just seek individual security and self-interest. It is the way of dedication for the benefit of God, the world, and all mankind. And this is from Blessing and Ideal Family 6.4.3. And we read, "For the sake of peace and human welfare, I propose that we build a passage for transit across the Bering Strait, where Satan has historically divided east and west, and north and south, and where the North American and Russian land masses are separated. This passage, which I call the World Peace King Bridge and Tunnel, will link the international highway system that will allow people to travel on land from Africa's Cape of Good Hope to Santiago, Chile, and from London to New York across the Bering Strait, connecting the world as a single community. God is warning that we will no longer tolerate separation and division. Carrying out this project will bring the world together as one village. It will tear down the man-made walls of race, culture, religion, and country, and establish the world of peace that has been God's cherished desire. The United States and Russia can become as one. The European Union, China, India, Japan, Brazil, and all nations, and also the world's religions, can combine their energies to succeed in this project. The success of this project will be decisive in establishing the kingdom of the peaceful, ideal world, where people will no longer make war with each other. And this is a speech given to us September 12th, the year 2005. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ezra, I'm sorry, I don't want it to be longer, so we don't have a time now. Let's sing a song, a unity song, and we pray as a prayer, and then finish.
Hold it a second. Tomorrow, I don't know if I can be here tomorrow, whatever, but tomorrow we will be reading peace message for those who will be ready. Actually, that's the first book that we read. Read all 8 texts more, but tomorrow we'll give everybody edification and information, and then we'll start with the peace message book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
used to almost 6 even. We don't know.
Yeah, we were determined we finish.
Yes.
Because it's